is Steve Boughton. I'm the channel account manager at Highland Software for ImageSoft. So basically, I'm kind of their conduit into Highland Software in terms of helping security customers, working with current customers, whatever that might be, and really pulling in the right resources when needed to help out the great folks at ImageSoft. So appreciate you guys taking the time today to talk a little bit about human resources and really how anywhere within the back office is a great fit for OnBase, but really particularly in that HR area is what we find. We know much like any area within government is continually stressed for resources and do more with less, right? But no more so than in human resources. So typical human resources environments, especially if you're using a lot of paper, there's just a ton of paper that goes along in the HR area, and there's obviously with that paper a lot of concerns that go along with it, whether it's who has access to it, did we lock the filing cabinets, what are we going to do if the basement floods and we can't have access to all these records, etc. So really kind of moving electronically helps to alleviate kind of some of the primary concerns that we see here within the HR area. So the first one I mentioned just a little bit is security. Again, you are storing a lot of highly valuable confidential information from your one of your most valuable assets, and that's your employees. So you want to make sure that you're trying to take care of them as best as you can. Also compliance. How are you ensuring that you have all the documentation that you need for your employees, whether that's I-9 forms or that sort of thing. So, I'm sure, again, in the paper environment that may be managed, somebody going through and checking it off on another piece of paper or a spreadsheet perhaps, but just making sure that having the data available and ensuring that it's in there is important as well as the cost. Trying to make sure that you are servicing your essentially customers in the most efficient and effective way is ultimately one of the key goals of HR. So here's the desire, obviously, a peace of mind, knowing that not only are my documents are secure, but that I have them, that I can provide that high level of service to my staff and ensure that we're taking care of their needs and requests as quickly and as efficiently as possible. So take a half a step back. How many folks are using OnBase currently in the organization? All right, just about all of you. Not quite all of you. So that's great. So I will kind of keep that in mind. I'm going to kind of step through some of the software pieces, and show you how that relates. So I will definitely kind of tailor it to that group as well. So again, kind of the security piece, whether that's the confidential information on health status or all the financial information, salary information, immigration status, whatever that might be, you have to keep that protected, and not only from kind of the second bullet point up there, people that may want access to that information to set up phony credit cards or what have you, or it's oftentimes even accidental. Information where a folder may be placed out on somebody's desk and isn't returned to where it should be, and somebody may stumble across it, maybe even incidentally. So just kind of mitigating that, of course, is very important. So also one of the great things about OnBase as well is that very discernible audit trail. So who's interacted with documents, what they've interacted with, and when, of course. So, and ideally, obviously, the great thing about OnBase is kind of locking that down even more. So you have the different security levels of OnBase, and one of our solution engineers kind of put this together. It makes a lot of sense too. It's very basic. Give you kind of the three levels are, the first level is accessibility. Can you get into OnBase at all? Do you even have access to the system? If you do, what can you see? What documents are you able to access? If you don't have the appropriate rights to documents or actions within OnBase, then you don't even know that those documents or actions exist. I've also heard it described by some of our folks is that you are, as an OnBase user, you're born naked into the system. You don't have any rights until they are associated by your system administrator. And then kind of that third level is, okay, we've established what you're able to see, but what capabilities do you have within OnBase? Are you able to email those documents out? What workflow actions are you able to take within these documents that you do have access to? So kind of have this example here of what we've deemed high velocity airlines, and in this example they have offices, and one of the things that we heard in the session I was in earlier was that obviously more oftentimes than not, nobody is centrally located anymore. This is a big geographic difference, but even if it's across town, the same thing relates in terms of where these files can be stored. They may be stored in our kind of our headquarters, if you will, and we may have HR documents that are stored in our remote offices, in this case in Denver and Chicago. So what happens today in this paper environment? Are these mailed back? Do we store copies? What exactly goes on? And you can see this is kind of an example of documents being shipped back and copies residing at the current facilities as well. But going electronic, which is great, so we can have that exposure of all the different facilities to their HR documents for their particular employees. But do we want to have our corporate folks have exposure to the employee information in Denver, or maybe we don't? And again, it can get very confusing. One of the nice things that we've heard with obviously the folks like ImageSoft is that they can really kind of bring those best practices to the table and help you kind of set up what they've seen with other government entities, and really bring that power of OnBase to make this process, which once you start delving into it, can be like an onion, a lot of different layers. So here's kind of just a quick snapshot. We're going to touch on some of these key pieces today within this demo. I just wanted to do this kind of quick kickoff presentation just to kind of get everybody's mind right. But employee file management. So big piece there is, when you think about file retention. And I know that can vary from state to state, and sometimes even county to county, in terms of how long you need to keep documents. And sometimes it's forever, sometimes it's 7 years. And how are you managing that process? So certainly that's something that OnBase can help with, all the way down to purging the documents from the system and making sure that that those are no longer accessible, and keeping that record. The policies and procedures. This is one of the nice features and functionalities that we will see within OnBase that we talk about in terms of document knowledge transfer. So it's the whole idea of making sure that the policies and procedure document that any organization has, whether it's the IT policy or the employee handbook, if you will, are not only efficiently distributed, but is tracked to ensure that folks within the organization have read those files. The employee case and issue management is a big one as well. If you're talking about maybe even sexual harassment issues, and kind of a central area to really gather and keep all that information. One of the big areas that we're seeing probably over the last couple of years is employee onboarding and offboarding, ensuring that when a new employee joins the organization, that all the different departments are notified that this employee is coming on, whether that's the IT staff being alerted that, hey, we need to get computer hardware ordered and or set up for this person, or the facilities folks being alerted to the fact that you need a badge created for this person. Offboarding is more often than not just as important, ensuring that kind of in the reverse, that access is turned off. And we were at a higher education customer not all that long ago, and they were talking about some of the offboarding challenges that they've had, and that there was an employee that had separated from the organization but still had a car that belonged to the university that they were still driving around 2 weeks after they had left the organization. So, but again, it's just kind of keeping track of that. And obviously, kind of the forerunner to that is the recruitment. Presenting that, out on your website, an easy way for folks to, fill out an e-form with their qualifications, attach their resume, and have that automatically be routed kind of within OnBase to start that workflow process.
So are these all integrated? Are they always integrated so that somebody does apply for a job, and if they turn it to an employee, you don't have to rekey anything?
Exactly right. Yeah, that file just, the resume, and that's one of the things we'll see within this demo, is just kind of kept in that employee file, and it's not, something that, as to your point, has to be rekeyed. So, just something to think about as well, in terms of if you're going to make that big leap, and it really just depends on what the preference is. If you're going to do a big batch file conversion or a day forward, and either is appropriate depending on what you're looking to do. But really kind of taking a look at making that transition, assessing the capabilities and certainly the equipment and the availability of the folks within the organization to undertake that. So, just some of the things we've seen people try to do, hire temps, professional outsourcing, whatever that might be. But again, by doing that, even having folks internally keying in some of that information, you could have some exposure. Just wanted to let you guys know, Highland Software does have imaging services that are available. Again, just if you kind of go down that road in the future, we actually have locations in just outside, in Cleveland, and then also just outside of Lansing, here in Michigan. So those are 2 locations, so kind of a nice footprint here, centrally located in the state of Michigan. So, also with OnBase, you have this flexible deployment model. You heard Bill Creamer this morning mention that we have a hosted offering OnBase Online with over 600 customers. Our most traditional at this point is a premise-based solution where you buy the software, that perpetual license, you pay annual maintenance, you have the hardware and get that all set up, and it's something that your staff manages. But we also have a concept of a hosted solution where, again, you buy the software as that perpetual license, but it is hosted on our Highland Software cloud, if you will. You pay the annual maintenance along with the additional hosting fee. Or if you're really truly looking at that software as a service model where you're just paying a monthly subscription, you don't have to worry about annual maintenance, and there is that hosting component that goes along with that. So one of the nice things about these HR solutions is that they can be deployed in a lot of different ways. So I'll make sure that we bounce back to that here at the end, but I do want to get in and start demoing the software just to kind of show you a little bit about what I'm talking about. So if we take a look here, I am logged in because we're going to look at document history as a super user for this particular demo. So as a super user, I have full access to anything and everything, all documents within this demo system. So this would, in a true production environment, be kind of a bit of a rare role, if you will. So I just want to quickly step through the new Unity client and just kind of show you some of that interface quickly in terms of retrieval. Very, very similar to what you would have experienced in the past with custom query, and this is just something that can be set up for potentially folks that are doing those frequent searches throughout the day, or perhaps they're not a frequent OnBase user and you just want to present them with a very easy interface to interact with. So in this case, if I'm just looking for information on, maybe it's a particular employee, Jane Harper, you can type in Jane's first name, use a wildcard, and hit search, and I'll get a hit list back of all the different documents that are here. relating to Jane. So whether that's, again, Jane's resume, offer letter, we'll see here, this is an example, application for employment, and this is something that I'll go into here in a little bit more detail. This is an example of essentially an electronic form, but it's something that we call a Unity form, and this is something that we've really taken. It's taken a lot of development effort on our part over the last couple of years. Is basically having this point and click e-form designer, which is a very powerful tool and allows HR to easily manage and update those electronic forms for their folks, whether it's publishing it out on a website or even internally. So that's one of the nice things. I'll hold this up as well, but just think of all the forms that maybe go along with that HR process, whether it's a time off request or a benefit change request. Yes.
I have a quick question on this. If we already have e-forms with this kind of information and we go into Unity e-forms, is there a way to port over the HTML format into this without any things?
It's not at this point in terms of converting over. The Unity forms, depending on what you can still leverage those traditional HTML forms as well. So it's not as though those will go away. But
if I wanted to put it in this format,
yep.
and if my e-form had all of the documents with the OB identifiers, it seems like it would be easy to pull it into one.
And that's one of the things. I'll go into the designer a little bit just to kind of show you how easy it is to pull in those keywords. And you don't have to kind of go through the step of identifying when you create that text box or whatever to say OB key 102 or
So
whatever.
what I was asking is, if I already have that form with those identifiers in them, how hard would it be to just put a different layer instead of HTML?
That's a good question. That's something that if I can get your card or what have you after, I want to make sure that I run that by just some of our other folks just to see what their feedback would be. All right. If we take it, so that was custom queries. If we take another half step back here and look at document retrieval again, those of you familiar with OnBase. This is kind of a little bit old hat here, but the document type groups, the primary classification, kind of followed on by our next area, our document types. So in this case, I will look for maybe a resume or a security guard, and I can use all the wildcard functionality if need be. Add 1,000 today. So Jane, we have Jane's resume, and that's might be a little bit tough to see that, so maybe a little bit better, but we have the whole, still have that concept, the great concept of cross-references, so again, instead of that double click, which was easy, you still have that just a click away here. The double click still works if that's what your users are used to as well, but we have that related document available for Jane here as well. So again, very basic in terms of retrieval. One of the great tools that I think I'm finding a lot of our customers are not using, and it's just great, especially with human resources, is our file cabinet folder structure. And this is native, true native, no additional licensing or anything else needed. Just needs to be configured within OnBase. But it really is designed to mirror what folks would be doing in an electronic file, in essentially a true filing cabinet structure. So if I look at kind of this folder tree, and look at this employee file cabinet, and we'll pick on Jane again. You can see we kind of have this several different options in terms of the views, whether it's this kind of parent and child folder view or this tab view, which is available. And like anything within OnBase, it's, you know, the naming conventions are all configurable, the colors are configurable, of course. So what's nice here with this file cabinet and folder structure is that not only are these file cabinets or these folders set up dynamically, simply by bringing a document into OnBase, these folders are created. So it's not as though somebody has to go in and manage that process. OnBase is smart enough to know, okay, if I get this particular type of document, whether it's maybe it's an application, to go ahead and create this folder. And then once they transition to an employee, we'll update the keywords to give them an employee ID. And that's certainly something that can be, you know, managed by our HR line of business application if they have information stored there. So this is just a different way to look at documents stored within OnBase. You can see we have different document types set up. We have her cover letter, her employment application, which we looked at, whether the interview guide or maybe Jane's resume are all stored here as well. This is great if you look at the employment documents, and again, kind of the subfolder or this tab on the right. One of the nice things we can do with this file cabinet and folder structure, you see here, is also alert you to the fact, and kind of one of the things that I mentioned during that brief presentation was, you know, how do I know that I have all the documents within the system? Well, you know, here's just kind of a quick ad hoc way, but using or leveraging these folder templates, we can also report against this using something called exception reports, where you can run this exception report to say, hey, you know, this is, I've looked at it at a granular level, but look at all my files and tell me what documents I may be missing. And once that report's run, it can be sent off to a workflow to, you know, whatever that might be, sent to the employee's manager, sent to the employee to say, hey, you know, we're missing this document, please fill this out, et cetera, all that great stuff you can do with workflow. All right. And even in this example, we've taken it down to performance reviews. And, you know, we have electronic forms for that. This is kind of a little bit simplified. It's similar to what we do within Island software in terms of our performance reviews as well, going through that with our managers. So again, I love the file cabinet and folder structure. Sometimes, like I said, it doesn't get a lot of attention, but it is something that can be very effective, and especially making that transition. If we look at take a half step into workflow, you can see an example of the exception reports workflow that I just mentioned here a short time ago, an example of some of those exceptions that have been sent off. You still have this concept of your work folder here, and you can see exactly all the contact information. You can also see what information may not be found here. So this is a very simple example, and kind of stopped it in this queue just for demonstration purposes, but you know, just to kind of show that, hey, this notification, the existence of a exception, it doesn't even have to be the primary document that's presented within this workflow. In this case, it's just the employee profile record that's been sent to the HR manager, in this case, to help get that clear. Right? One of the things I mentioned was the ability to you know, easily and efficiently push out information in terms of your policies and procedures, and this is what we call document knowledge transfer. All right. We take a look at document knowledge transfer. This is something that can be just appear as a link or a icon here within the ribbon. You can have numerous reading groups. So in this case, I only have one set up for this particular demo, but based on the role of the individual within the organization, they can be assigned to different reading groups. So, you know, the folks that are, you know, perhaps in the court system are going to have likely a different set of documents to review and read than the folks that are doing the, you know, the street work. So in this case, we'll just kind of take a look at this one that I have set up. So you can see here we kind of have a handful of different documents that have been acknowledged in the past, being saved as a reference document, but more importantly, here's one of the documents. In this case, it's overdue, but something that needs to be acknowledged from me logged in as this user here. So you can see in this case it's a Word document, and pretty much any format, TIFF, PDF can be leveraged within document knowledge transfer. We can send out notifications to users that may be delinquent. We can report on both at the document level to say, okay, who hasn't acknowledged our computer use policy? Or we can do it at the user level to say, okay, which documents has Jane Harper not acknowledged yet? So we can do that reporting to ensure we have compliance and are maintaining that information. We also, once we can, in OnBase 12, one of the things that we've done is at minimum force them to scroll to the bottom. In 13, which is going to be out in just a couple of weeks, and it's been asked for a long time, are going to be able to present them with a short either quiz, if you will, or sort of summary to say that again, just that additional authentication that they've acknowledged this document. So again, that's something that's been asked for quite a while, and something that we're going to establish within document knowledge transfer. So here, as I go in as this user and I'm going to acknowledge this document, I'm going to be presented with this window. Again, just think of all that history building within OnBase that basically says, and this is all configurable, the verbiage, it's small. Essentially it says, do you really need it? Do you agree by the terms and policies and procedures? Again, just building that history. So it's going to just force me to say yes. And we can even take it to the next level to say, okay, great, you've hit yes. Please authenticate with your OnBase password, or depending how you authenticate in, maybe it's your Windows password. But just to take it to that next step, so that I can't claim that when I was away from my desk, somebody sat down and happened to acknowledge all the information for me. Alright, so I get a notification that the document has been acknowledged. And now you can see that the acknowledge or reject buttons are grayed out. And I can move this into reference if need be, and kind of move on from there. We also have this concept of an approval viewer. For those users within the organization that are helping to set policies or review policies, that's something that can be leveraged right here as well. So leveraging the approval viewer, so let's say, for example, there's an employee handbook that goes out every year and needs to be reviewed by whoever it is within the organization, maybe the principals within HR, or leaders within the organization. This is where they could go in and make modifications to the document, and then once it's approved, kind of stamp that version approved, and then have it sent out to the organization. So kind of keeping that centrally located as well. All right. I do want to touch on Unity Forms Designer. I have time for that. So this is, again, something that we've had available for the last couple versions of OnBase, and has really come a long way from when we initially released it, especially in 12. We can add things to it like, any logos you may want to have available. We have the ability to change the theme. Essentially, when we say theme designer, the color palette, if you will. We have some kind of generic ones we have in there, but you can also customize that as well. So if I want to just go ahead and create a Unity form on the fly, go ahead and do that. Essentially, I'm going in and saying, okay, what document type group is this going to be associated to? Pick the appropriate document types. In this case, I'm just going to choose a benefit change request form. Just give it a change name. This is when I can go in and select my themes, which is great. And here's where I can go in and add available keywords. So if I go in and click this box, all the associated keywords to this Unity form, or this document type, I should say, are going to be added automatically. I'll go ahead and do this. It'll be kind of a little cluttered, but I can show you how we can clean that up here. So when I hit finish, you can see all these keywords, again, that were associated here are on this document. So it's really easy. If I want to get rid of some of this information, I can just go ahead and say I want to delete it. Yes, sure. I can leverage things like drop-down boxes. I can make this an autofill keyword set using employee IDs. I can show you how I do that as well. Let me just clean up some of these. One of the nice things too as well is if you want to add different fields here as well, it's very easy to do that within this designer. So you can see I've just labeled this benefit form. If I want to go in and add things like a checkbox, all I need to do is highlight that or click and drag into the form, and now I can add a checkbox here. If I need to go ahead, obviously I'm going to want to give that a name. Maybe instead of saying add a title checkbox, I want to say is this for a new employee. When that is checked, we can route that appropriately through. Maybe it goes to a different person within HR. I can make different fields required fields. So simply by going down and scrolling to the bottom here, I can mark this as a required field so that when I go in and submit the form, I can't move on without, we've all seen that on websites, you can't move on without filling in different pieces of information. Maybe I want to also make this employee ID form, take advantage of an autofill keyword set that I may have built. Let's see. So when I get the form to where I want it to be, certainly I can add multiple pages. That's as easy as clicking this button up here, and I can create another tab within the form here as well. I can leverage things within 12, like custom actions. So basically, if I check this particular box, display this other subset of fields that would need to be filled out. Just a whole variety of things that you can do very, very quickly. Instead of kind of going that HTML route in the past. I know one of the things we've heard from our development, our VP of development, is when we first came out with Unity forms, a couple versions of OnBase ago, we had probably about 25% of the capabilities to handle the traditional forms that we had within an organization. Now, in subsequent releases, we probably have 75 to 80% functionality available with the Unity form. So definitely still a place for those traditional HTML forms, but again, it's just getting more and more robust as future versions of OnBase have come along. So when I've gotten the form to the point where, hey, I want to go ahead and try to test this form, I can click this button that says Test Drive, and I can go ahead and change my view, if you will. And this is a great example. If I had created some custom actions here to see, if I'm logged in as, city council clerk, for example, how that may look versus, maybe a judge or what have you. Maybe there's more functionality. And again, for a benefit form, it's probably not a great example because it's probably going to be pretty standard. But I think you get the idea. So I can go ahead and make that change here and also test the information that I may want to capture. So you can see here when I leverage that employee ID 115, how that autofill worked for me here. If I go ahead and submit this, kind of gives me a quick snapshot of the information that I've captured, the community services, etc. here. So when I'm done, all I need to do is go ahead and say, publish this form. Basically says, are you sure? So yes, I am. And now this form is available to my OnBase users that would have access to eForms. If I want to go ahead and share this form or publish it out on a website, that's as easy as going out here and presenting the data source, pointing it to the target URL, and I can choose to either embed, just make it appear as a link, or kind of embed it as kind of a small snapshot within the site as well. Just a great tool there that's getting more and more robust. I probably would be remiss if I didn't talk a little bit about our Outlook integration and how great that is in terms of leveraging that with your OnBase solution. Obviously, I think for most folks, I know it is for me, Outlook is the first thing that I open when I get to work every day, and allowing you to interact with OnBase through Outlook makes it just that much easier for your users. Whether it's, again, we kind of had that example of missing forms. So again, you can see here we got some forms in from our employees here. So I can simply just click and drag this form up to this pre-configured folder for OnBase. And what will happen is it will, or it should, prompt me with basically an import dialog box. Let's see. That one may have been configured to pull it right in. But basically what will happen is when you pull those documents in, you'll get an import dialog that says, okay, you have the option to go ahead and say, do you want to classify this as basically tell me what type of document this is. One of the nice things we can do with these folders as well is also capture that information, and simply by clicking and dragging those, that email and the attachment, more importantly, more oftentimes than not, dragging that into OnBase, we can take that information captured from that mail message, whether it's the mail to, mail from, etc., and to capture that without the need to index based on the way we have that set up. One of the nice things we've also done here recently with OnBase is the ability to take make a decision right from the email. And this is a good example of what we may have done in the past with these email notifications, where we would basically put a link in there that says, okay, here's your link to workflow. Go ahead and take action here by clicking this link. But we thought it would be important to take this next step further and just say, wouldn't it be easier just to be able to allow that user to, in this case, take action or make a decision right here from the workflow. So you can see here those ad hoc tasks that are available to me right from this viewer here. So, we're almost, looks like running up on time. I did want to leave some time for questions.